So we're going to talk about the faces of innocent kids killed by their parents and all the cases the authority turned their blind eye to. So this all starts really in the public view in the UK with the case of Maria Colwell. Now, we know almost 50 years ago, a 7-year-old girl was rushed to hospital with horrific injuries caused by her stepfather. And this is Maria Colwell. Maria Colwell's stomach was empty. She hadn't eaten for days. Her eyes were both black and her ribs had been fractured, and she was suffering horrific damage to her brain. She couldn't be saved and was declared dead on January the 7th of 1973. And on that day, British authorities said, "We will never let this happen again. No child can ever go through what Maria Colwell suffered." Maria's death became a watershed moment for child safety in the UK, and it triggered major changes on how they would tackle child abuse cases. Now, in Maria's case, it emerged in her final 15 months of life. Neighbours and teachers had repeatedly shared their concerns with social services. At the time of her death, she was under the supervision of the authority in Brighton, who had visited her home more than 50 separate times. A public inquiry was launched to know how social services had visited 50 times and not seen the injuries. And during that public inquiry, the grim-faced officials said, "This may never happen again." And so far we've heard that repeated again and again and again. Despite the promises made after Maria was killed, social workers, teachers and doctors and police are still failing children. They're still failing to notice the warning signs of abuse. This cannot keep happening. Boris Johnson, back about 5 years ago now, vowed to bring in new Arthur's Law, and he said that would be that twisted child killers will remain behind bars for the rest of their life. That was never done. We know that NSPCC said these horrific deaths of children like Arthur and Star are rare, but each one uniquely tragic, and most of them are preventable. They all have crucial learning from previous cases, but nothing is ever properly followed through on. So Maria Colwell had been looked after by her paternal aunt Doris Cooper and Doris's husband when her father died when she was 4 months of age. She enjoyed a really happy childhood with Doris, and she was absolutely taken to the seaside. They're not anymore, Lubes. She was taken to me, even if it's 5 children a year, that's 5 children with names, with futures. We would have gone on to have children, marriages, happy lives. That's 5 too many. 1's too many. So the fact that we keep going, it's quite rare. It doesn't matter how rare you're considering this. Every child matters. So we're going to see a theme here, right? So Maria was given to her aunt, her paternal aunt, her dad's sister, and her husband when she was 4 months of age, and they absolutely doted on her. She had trips to the seaside. She had loads of things happening. She was in school. She was happy. She was laughing all the time. And then her mum decided, "I want her back." Pauline fought to regain custody of her and was granted this straight away by social services, who said the right place for a child would be, thank you, sweet psycho. They said the actual right place for her to be is with her birth family. The youngster was subjected from that moment, from going back to her mum's house, to 15 months of brutal abuse at the hands of Pauline and her stepfather, William Keppel, an absolutely evil man, evil man, and her mum joined in. She became a walking skeleton after being denied food, and she would be forced to come into the room to watch Keppel's children eat ice cream, take out birthday cake, and she would have to stand and watch, but she was never allowed to have a morsel of food. When the family ate together, Maria was locked in her bedroom. She was seen in the neighbourhood rummaging through bins trying to eat rubbish. Neighbours and teachers voiced their concerns, and the agency supposed to take care of her, social services, visited her home over 50 times. On January the 6th of 1973, we believe that somehow Maria had got some food, a piece of bread, something like that, and Keppel found her, and he stomped her to death. He stomped her so badly it left her with severe internal and external injuries, And then they made her stay overnight with the agony, with everything he'd done to her internally and the brain trauma before taking her to hospital. She died shortly after arrival at the hospital, having survived the whole night by herself, locked in a bedroom. And the pathologist had to stop several times during her autopsy, saying, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen." He couldn't even do it. Keppel was convicted of Maria's murder in April of 1973, but the charge was later reduced to manslaughter. Do you know, tell me in years how many years he served for what he did here. A stepfather who tortured her for 15 months, stomped her to death, ruined her internal organs, brain damaged a lot. How many years do you think he served? 4 years. 4 years. He served 4 years because they said, "Look, this isn't murder, it's manslaughter. You didn't mean to do this." A formal inquiry launched into her death by her mum. The way her mum served nothing. A formal inquiry launched into her death found there was a breakdown in communications from multiple agencies. East Sussex County Council had insufficient evidence to ever return her to her mother, and they used inexperienced social workers to just take a gamble with her life. At this time, all agencies were brought under question. Health visitors, police, housing officers, social workers, the school, they were all slammed for their involvement in Maria's case. And this was the first ever public inquiry into the death of a child like this in the UK. And this was the first attempt to protect children from abuse. But it just kept happening. It just kept happening. The next massive failure we have in the UK was Victoria Climbie. Victoria was born on the Ivory Coast but moved to the UK with her aunt, Maria Therese Colwell, I think it is, Colwell, to give her a better life. Just 18 months later, the 8-year-old was murdered by her aunt and her boyfriend, Carl Manning. She was tied up 24 hours a day. She was forced to sleep in a bin liner filled with her own excrement, poo, in a bath after the severity of her injuries rendered her incontinent. She was also branded Satan, burned with cigarettes, burnt with the hot tap kettle, made to eat food like a dog, hit with bike chains, hammers, coat hangers and shoes. Her whole body was just scarred everywhere. Her face, I can't even show you this morning, not before night time, the brutality of what they did to her face. I'll never forget. I covered this 2 years ago. I last saw pictures of her face and it's ingrained on my mind. Concerns were first raised in July of 1999 when her babysitter's daughter suspected she was suffering from horrific non-accidental injuries. She was taken to hospital where a doctor accepted their lies that Victoria was just scratching at scabies. And if I show you these pictures of the burns to her face, the fact that they managed to tell doctors she's just scratching at scabies. Mad. Medics did alert child protection authorities as a precaution, but social workers cancelled the home visits. Victoria Climbie. Eventually, her aunt stopped taking Victoria to the hospital and instead turned to churches for her injuries, trying to get them to exorcise the demons out of this young, beautiful girl. It is hard to do these cases, but we must give these children back their voices. We must allow them to have their stories told, because if we think, well, oh, this is a child case, it's too hard, then we forget who Victoria Climbie are, we forget who Poppi is, we forget who Star is. I mean, we must never forget. Now, we know that during this time, they were taking her to churches, and this is one of the things that breaks my heart, right? Victoria Climbie's parents had agreed that this kind of distant aunt could take her to the UK because she was promised that we're going to give her an education. She's going to have so many chances. She's going to have this life that you could never give her. So first she was taken to France and she was brought over to the UK. And as they would beat her and punish her, then they would be taking her to churches. And the people at these churches would be saying, she's evil, she's a demon, she's Satan. And this little girl would have been hearing these words. This is my fault. I deserve this. This is why they're doing this. They absolutely brutalised her and then blamed her. This gorgeous, beautiful little girl. Look how cute she is. Like, honestly, like the smile, the open face, like the belief she had in the world. We destroyed her, man. We destroyed her. We looked the other way. During the time that the Haringey Social Services said Manning had been sexually abusing Victoria. During this time, so the aunt phoned the Haringey Social Services and said that her partner had been having sex with Victoria, raping her. And then she called back the next day and said, actually, I've just made it up. And they never followed it through, never checked, never looked into it. Social workers later said, we did visit the home 3 times, but no one answered, so we just didn't follow it. They closed Victoria's case on February the 25th of 2000. She was murdered that same day. They closed her case because they couldn't find her. No one answered the door, so they just said, look, we'll close this. The girl was rushed to hospital, Victoria, suffering from hypothermia because she had no meat left on her bones. She weighed just 3 stone and 10 pounds. She had 128 injuries to her body, and she died soon after, and they were both caged for life for the murder. A public inquiry became the first in Britain to use wide-ranging powers to look at everything, again, from the range, from social services to everything. And it came up afterwards that there were 12 occasions where she should have been saved. 12 occasions where actually she should have been saved. And you think about that and you think, what, 12 times? And no one came. No one saved her. It doesn't even bear thinking about. She's 8, sorry. So she was born in November 1991 and she died on February 25th, 2000. Yeah, 8. So she was coming up to her 9th birthday. 12 times she came to people's attention in the UK. Even her aunt, who was supposed to look after her, phoning and going, look, I think my partner's raping her, sexually assaulting her, he's doing all this, and then phoned back the next day saying, I just said it because I was mad, don't worry about it. So 12 times when her life should have been saved. And then this leads us to this little boy, Peter Connolly, baby P. He died in London, aged 17 months of age, after suffering more than 50 injuries. During an 8-month campaign for cruelty, he was seen 60 times by healthcare professionals and social workers. His killing sparked outrage after it was revealed he lived in the same area and the same council social services as Victoria Climbie, and they'd missed it again. Peter's nightmare began when mum Tracy Connolly invited her new boyfriend Stephen Bark and the Nonce to move in during November 2006. Just months later, a GP, same one, noticed bruises on his face and chest, and he was placed in the care of a family friend. This brief break ended when he was returned to his home and was later admitted to hospital 2 separate times in that short period. Now, despite the fact that his mum was arrested after he was taken to the hospital, not with just an accidental injury, with 2 black eyes and a swelling to the side of his head, this child had obviously been beaten, but again, they sent him home. Even when authorities learned that baby Peter, his mum's new partner, his brother, had moved into the home with his 15-year-old girlfriend despite being in his 30s, again, they ignored it. We're not bothered that children are around paedophiles. Not our concern. What really breaks my heart about baby P is that Peter Connolly was, on the day the social workers last visited his home, they had smeared chocolate all over his face to hide the bruises, right? He was also strapped in his buggy. What we find out later is he was strapped in his buggy with broken ribs and a broken spine. And a social worker came into that house and didn't notice. How? I have no idea. And then when she said to baby P's stepdaddy, can you take him upstairs, please, and wash the chocolate off his face so I can have a look at the injury, if there's any kind of marks on his face, he took baby P upstairs and then refused to come back down, right? And she goes, I haven't really got time. Next time I'll have to see his face though. And then she left, right? A day later, he died. He was found dead in a blood-stained cot. Just one day after the social worker had left and police had phoned his mum to say she would not be prosecuted for the earlier black eyes and the big knot to the back of his head. A post-mortem later revealed he had swallowed teeth after being punched in the face. He was missing fingernails. He had a broken spine, a broken back, and had severe dog bites to the top of his head. The body map from the coroner of the injuries to baby P, you might as well have just got every single inch of his body was covered. They ripped his fingernails. I just can't even imagine. Owen and Barker were convicted of causing or allowing the death of a child Well, Connolly had early pled guilty to allowing the death of a child. They held him down and made the family dog bite his head. It was horrific. This was just what was shown in the court, the list of his injuries. Right, there was on a mark-up head. So we've got severe cuts to the top of the head, gashes to head caused by a human bite or a dog bite, but they thought it was a dog bite. Bruising on left temple and over his ear. Left ear ripped away from the head. Skin missing from lips and tongue. Cuts on the front of neck and underneath chin. Skin between upper lip and gum torn. Front tooth knocked out, later found in his stomach. 3 bruises on his forehead. Bruises to his right cheek. Blackened fingernails, toenails and fingernails missing. Skin stripped from his fingernails. 3 faint bruises on his chest. Faint bruises on his lower back. Skin missing from his nose. Bleeding around the spine. Broken back. Fractured shin bone. 3 faint bruises on his left shin. Bruises to toe and left foot. They were the injuries to baby P. His whole face. His ear was hanging off. It's absolutely horrific. And just you can't see anything on this, but this just shows every single point of injury on his body, which they marked off in the court. These injuries, the majority of them were on him the day before. So they smeared him in chocolate. This is what I'm saying to you. Social services only had to say, in this 17-month-old baby, can you please get him out of the buggy so we can see him walk? So we can see him play. That's your job, right? You're to see his child in his own environment. If they had done that, it would have saved his life. If they had demanded, like, I'm not leaving this house, I will call the police until you bring this child back down, they would have saved his life. Just smeared in chocolate. Do you know what I mean? And she didn't notice. Didn't notice. And this is why when I've done baby P's case once and people go, can you do it again? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. It'll take me some time. Daniel Pelka. On March the 3rd, 2012, 4-year-old Daniel died after being severely battered by his mum, Magdalena Luzak, I think it is, and her partner, Marius. The evil pair had starved and tortured the little boy at their Coventry home. His weight plummeted to 1 stone 9 pounds. Daniel suffered 22 different injuries, 10 to his head and a fatal brain injury. It later emerged the youngster was locked in a room and forbidden to use the toilet by his captors. Daniel was also force-fed salt daily and made to perform squats as punishments. Lucas claimed she was forbidden from feeding her son by her partner, who had tried to drown Daniel in a bath of cold water several times before. A review into his death found that police had been called 26 times to the property following domestic violence and alcohol abuse incidences. They'd never saved Daniel. After it was brought to the social services attention that he'd broken his arm in June of 2011, teachers phoned constantly saying that he was underweight, he was stealing food. He was even caught at school eating food from the bin. They phoned social services. His mum commits suicide in prison, the fucking coward. A school nurse also noted lumps on his head and finger marks around his throat and his face. His weight at this point was under 2 stone, and he had been force-fed salt by his evil cap. Look at his little face, man. In his final hours, Daniel was left to die alone in a filthy box room after being bludgeoned, hit around the head. His mum called the ambulance 2 days later, after he was already decomposing. She called and said, "Oh, he's struggling to breathe." No, he'd been dead. He'd been dead. She was jailed, his mum, for a minimum of 30 years, which talks about in this country, especially because we don't sentence people properly, how evil this was. She was found dead in her cell in H&P Foston Hall in Derbyshire in July of 2015. She'd been in prison nearly 2 years at that time. Her partner died also in jail. Poppi's case is very much like the case of baby Preston. She was raped to death by her own father. This cunt. Him. Alright? Happened in Wales. He has never ever faced any time. Why? Because police lost her last nappy. They lost the evidence. They lost the dad's laptop. They lost the bedding. They lost all of the evidence that would put him in prison. So now he's just walking the street. Now Poppi was 13 months of age. She died just 13 months after Daniel Pelka. and she was found with serious injuries in her home in Barrow-in-Furness in Cumbria. Poppy's dad, Paul Worthington, has avoided prosecution this whole time. Lost. Despite a coroner saying she was definitely raped that night. Now, we know that on the last night of her life, her dad went and got her out of her bed and brought her into his bed. She likely was suffocated during a rape. She has absolute horrific injuries. Her DNA was found on her dad's penis. And he's still out walking around. I want to like literally punch something. A sickening catalogue of abuse suffered by Poppi in her short life included internal injuries, a broken leg, significant bleeding caused by penetration, and horrific bruising to her throat. In January of 2018, a coroner ruled that she was sexually assaulted as she was suffocated on the bed. The Tots DNA was found on her dad's genitals. A Florida police investigation failed to place him under arrest for 8 months, and during that time, police lost the evidence. Tell me how you lost her last nappy. Tell me how you lost any of those things. Tell me how that even matters when you have her DNA on his penis. Tell me how that matters when you have the bleed into her body, the absolute horrific injuries, the internal injuries. Poppy's heartbroken mum wept as she revealed she heard her daughter scream out on the night of her death. Don't get it. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to, I can't speak on her mum because I don't know the situation, but I don't get how you heard her scream out and you didn't go to her, I'm sorry. She says she heard Poppy scream out, and later Worthington ran down the stairs with a lifeless tot in his arms after she suffered significant bleeding. Key clues were chucked in the bin. Police threw away her blood-soaked nappy. The bed where the youngster spent her final moments was not preserved by the cops. They failed to take her pyjama bottoms away, the blanket. They lost all the bedding. They lost the dad's laptop, which I'm sure would have been full of pornography of children. The series of failures by Cumbria police meant no one will ever be prosecuted for Poppy's death. High courts and family judges ruled both in 2014 and 2016 that Poppy was abused sexually by her dad shortly before her death. But the CPS in 2018 said, he will never face any legal action. There will be no fourth review. Poppy's case is done. During the inquest verdict, the court was told that only Poppy's dad knew what happened before her death, but he has declined to shed light on it. Her dad is now living in police protection. Worthington denies any wrongdoing and is now hiding with the help of police protection. This is the only case where I physically had to grip a pen because I thought I'm going to smash my phone on the desk. I can't even keep them up. You couldn't protect Poppy, but you can. How are the police protecting a man who had the blood? This is so graphic. The blood and the DNA of Poppy on his penis. How are you protecting him? And what is connecting you to him? Why have you lost the evidence on purpose? Why have you not protected this little girl? What does he have over you? Who is his family? Who is this fucking white piece of shit? And I'll say that because there's something making you protect this man, right? Who is this man to you? That you can turn around and say that's not enough evidence. I thought it was legally wrong in the UK for any man or woman to have the blood and DNA from a little girl's bits on their private parts. Just thought it was wrong. Just thought it would absolutely be a problem. That should be enough. Not to even count the fact that you lost a blood-soaked nappy. How did you lose a blood-soaked nappy accidentally on purpose, right? Why didn't Poppy matter enough? How are those police officers protecting him? How do you not feel sick every time you know you're keeping this motherfucker safe after what he did? In my opinion, Poppy's case is the closest I have ever seen to Preston's, only it was her natural father that did this, and hardly anyone knows about it. How many of you knew before I spoke about this today that this had happened to Poppy and all that evidence was there? Because I only learned about it a month ago when I first did the video about Poppy. I knew this picture. I had no idea that someone was out walking and they had done this to her. I had no idea that Cumbria police and we are hiding this man. Hey, Moody, are you okay? I had no idea that they've lost her bloody nappy, the bed sheets, the dad's laptop, and even the coroner saying you raped her to death. Her father, this fucking monster, had her DNA all over his penis. And the Crown Prosecution Service said, we'll never get justice for her. We're never going to take him to court. We've lost all the evidence. Shame on you, the UK. Shame on you. He's now in police protection. Police protection. No one protected her. Thank you, Moody. Sorry, you've come into me ranting. I'm so angry. How are we not protecting children? Thank you, Moody, so much. He denies any wrongdoing. And now he's in police protection. The inquest even said Poppy's dad knew what happened to her. He took her into his bed, he raped her, and she suffocated in his bed. Her nappy was full of blood. The bed sheets were full of blood. Her dad's privates had her DNA on, and they lost it all. Apparently, they lost it all. And then the CPS said in 2018, he will never face any legal action. There'll be no review of this case. And now they've placed her dad in protection. Look at this little angel's face, man. Key clues were chucked in the bin. Her blood-soaked nappy. The bedding where the youngster spent her final minutes alive. Her pyjama bottoms lost by the police, apparently. The little girl's DNA was found on her dad's genitals and penis. They did even question him for 8 months. Her mum said, yes, I heard her scream out on the night of her murder, but until he come downstairs with a lifeless body, I didn't suspect anything. How? And I get a little angry about Preston, but we should be shouting, well, everyone's talking about Preston, but what about Poppi? What about Poppi? Why isn't her mum shouting out about it? Why aren't her family saying, regardless, we're going to keep calling this man a nonce all over the internet. We're going to keep making sure that people know exactly who this piece of shit is. And, you know, these are why I ask these questions and people think I'm nuts, because I always think, like, what if her dad was a Sikh? What if he was a brown man? What if he was from a really poor home? What if he had a lot of crimes in his background? What is it about her dad that meant he got away with it and now he's in police protection? There has to be connections, right? To local government, to the police, to grassing something. There's a reason why the people in the UK decided, actually, Poppi doesn't matter. Her life means nothing. And we have to stop that. I personally, and I know I hate to say this, but obviously I cover these cases all the time, I look at some pictures of Poppi and I think abuse was going on. And it's foolish for a family to say you didn't see things, because even in pictures like this, I see marks here where I shouldn't see marks. Okay, around her eyes, and I've got a filter on as well, and on her head. I see things all the time where we shouldn't be seeing things. For me personally, when children aren't even old enough to move around by themselves, my children have marks all over their faces. At the very most, when they're like chewing on toys or something, they have a little red mark here, it goes away in the day. Like, I never saw my children with like welts on their head and things like that. It's only when they start walking, they may start tumbling a little bit. But even then, I never saw any massive injuries on my children. I don't have photos of my children where I think, oh my God, look at her face. Like, children have accidents, but they don't. They don't have these constant fearful looks of their face. They don't have these bruises all over them. Another one here. There's just like little things about the pictures that don't seem right. They tried to say that Poppi's DNA had been found on her father's penis, but they said it excluded penetration as the results for its reason for being there. They tried to say that it was transferred to his penis when he went to the toilet, despite the fact her nappy was full of blood and had horrific injury to her genitals. Not connected, apparently. The hearing also addressed the mystery surrounding Poppi's favourite pink elephant pillow that's never been seen again. One of the specialists said, I cannot see the injuries on the child bottom described by the pathologist, but I can see why she thinks she saw them. What? Asked if the blood found on 2 bed sheets and Poppy's bottom required further explanation, she said, probably. She said, I can't identify where it comes from. Why are all these people lying? I just don't understand. I can't believe how he's being protected, not even just not jailed. What is it about him? If anyone locally knows why this man is being protected, knows why... Oh, paedophiles don't stop. Paedophiles move victim. He's now protected, right? So he can just move in and out of single-parent homes and do whatever the fuck he wants, right? Because if you, in the eyes of the law, right, he's innocent. Next is Arthur Labinjo-Hughes. Tragic Arthur was 6, was tortured to death by his dad, Thomas Hughes, and his evil stepmother, Emma Tustin. After months of horrific abuse, he was tortured to death. The evil couple waged a sick campaign of cruelty against Arthur in his tragic final moments. In his final months, or I should say. These are the clips that were released afterwards, where Arthur sat there and he said, nobody loves me, nobody likes me, and nobody loves me, I've got nobody. He was segregated for up to 14 hours a day and forced to sleep on the floor in a brutal struggle that matched the medical definition of child torture. He was poisoned with so much salt he was too weak to even pop a fight. On the 16th of June, again we see that date, Tustin repeatedly smashed the youngster's head against a hard surface, causing him to collapse and die. He died in hospital the next day from head trauma inflicted on by an adult, consistent with being vigorously shaken or his head being stomped on or smacked against a hard surface. We'll talk about something else in a moment. Arthur's frail and skeletal body was covered with 130 bruises, and he suffered 93 areas of injury, including on his head, arms, legs, feet and torso. Chillingly, Arthur's final moments on Earth were captured in harrowing audio clips and recordings made by his father and his girlfriend. In a 23-second clip, which I think has haunted the whole of the world, they've seen it. 23 seconds where he says, nobody loves me. Nobody is coming to feed me. The couple's months of abuse slipped under the net after Hughes and Tustin used lockdown to stop social services accessing him. Concerned family who raised the concerns with social workers and police were ignored. And one of his family members even told, if you keep calling, we're going to arrest you. Pack it in. Tustin, 32, was jailed for life with a minimum term of 29 years, and his father for 21 for manslaughter. Both sentences were later reviewed. A series of missed opportunities by the authorities have now been looked into. Again, they've said we should have saved him. We should have been able to step in and do more. Police, schools, social service, and probation are all being looked into. Why they didn't save his life. He was 6. You just can't even. And again, they said the same thing. Right, we're going to do more. And then just afterwards, so we had June, then we had September after they said they would never let it happen again, right? And then Star Hobson happened. Star Hobson, who died of catastrophic injuries after her mum and her mum's partner commit the absolute most brutal acts against her. She died from blood loss in September of 2021, I think it was, years after her inferior vena cava, the largest vein in the body, was torn by stamping. Medics say her injuries were usually only seen in car crash victims and had been caused by the punches, kicks or stomps. The tragic tot has also suffered severe skull fracture, several other fractures to her tibia, her ribs, leading up to the fatal attack in Keighley in West Yorks. During a lengthy trial, jurors endured harrowing footage of Star looking bruised with swollen cheeks, marks to her forehead. They watched chilling clips of a pub bouncer Brock Hill punching and slapping Star with considerable force 21 times over a 3-hour period. And this was the famous footage of Savannah would take her partner's daughter to work, where she was a security guard at a waste disposal place, and she would leave her strapped in the car seat. Then every couple of minutes she'd come back to the car, open the door and just start punching her, and then she'd leave again, and then she'd come back and do it again. And she was literally beating a child in her car seat, and you could see her forcefully doing this to this baby. They also employed the same torture techniques we saw yesterday in the baby Preston case. She was unable to sleep. And as she'd be falling asleep in a high chair and she would be going, they would go, boom! And they would scare the life out of her. So they'd keep her in constant state of fear. It is absolutely one of the most traumatic things you could do to a child. They decided in Preston in the court how he was constant watchful because he was waiting for the loud noises. He just couldn't, he was panicking. He was literally in trauma response at all times. They literally would keep her asleep so long and cause horrific injuries to her legs, and then they'd watch her fall over all over the floor. They'd film it and put it on their Facebook and go, look at her, fucking clumsy bitch, look at her. And people were laughing. People were laughing at her because she couldn't walk, right? And they would literally let her walk, push her, right? After what they'd done to her. Like, these people were fucked. The crying toddler could also be seen painfully trying to climb up a flight of stairs while suffering from a broken shin, while both women forced her to walk while laughing at her. Brock Hill got 25 years, right? Star's mum was jailed for 8. 8. For just allowing the death of a child. The Attorney General has confirmed they have received a request to put their sentences up, right? This is mental to me. There were 5 opportunities to save Star, far more in my opinion. Dad's family and mum's own family, her brother, her mother, were calling social services, right? And showing them pictures and saying, look how bruised her face is, man, this isn't right. They won't let us see our grandchild. They've kept her from us. She's absolutely injured. She's really hurt. I need someone to go there. And social services were saying, look, if you keep up this nonsense, then you literally will be arrested. Like, you need to stop. You're making up stuff, right? And they were showing, this is allowing the death of the child needs to go. They were sending pictures, and these pictures are they're so heartbreaking, these pictures, right? And they were saying, no, she's fine. Why are you sending us these pictures? I'll show you this picture quickly because this was a picture that her nan and the mum's own brother sent to social services and were told that it was to mind their own business. Right? So her brother sent this to social services and said, look at my niece's face, right? Look what they've done to my niece. And they said, look, you've got to stop phoning. You're doing this because you want to control the situation. The dad of Star was messaging social services saying, someone just posted past me this absolutely horrific picture. And the mum was saying, look, my family have always been getting involved. You know, five, this is her family, yeah. They had no reason to make it up. These are cases keep happening. Sara Sharif is the same, right? Sara Sharif's case is like, this case will always be close to my heart because I'll never get over Sara Sharif, right? Sara Sharif, the social services were supposed to go and see Sara. Oh, this little fetch man. She was supposed to have a visit from social services and they got the wrong address and they went to the family's old home. So they said, we'll just come back next month, right? And by that next month, she was already dead. The injuries to Sara Sharif, man. Human bite marks all over her. They heated up the family iron, pressed it down on her bum cheeks, they poured kettle water on her feet. They tied her to heating pipes in the home. You can see it all up and down her legs. They tied carry bags around her head and then beat her head with metal poles. They literally destroyed her, like, honestly, over a period of like months. On one occasion she wrote to her dad, like, thank you for feeding me for today, like, I really love you.